And we've been meeting, most of us now, for nearly a year, although we also know that time is an illusion. In this manifest world, we've all agreed to play the game of time. Although we know that it's always now. It's only ever now. And all we are ever asked to do is to be present with life unfolding as it is right now. Yet still, with the patterns and impressions and the karmas that we have gathered and that have attached themselves to the psyche of this embodied human form and the energetics of this embodied human form, we get caught up with our story, with our history, with unresolved impressions, patterns, and traumas that have occurred. Yet if we could be born again in each moment, fresh, as we observe in a little child who sees things with fresh eyes, with a clear and clean psyche, with less patterned impressions and less awareness of history. If we can be as the little children, then life can be naturally loving, naturally joyous, naturally playful. We can be open to the moment, to see without putting past experience on what we are experiencing now. It is this action replay and the expectations of an experience to repeat itself that disallow us to have the freshness in each moment. So we've been talking this year about being able to live an embodied, full life, expressing beautifully in whatever way brings joy here, but at the same time remembering that we are one consciousness. And in that aspect of the unborn, we are always consciousness itself. My Father and I are one, Jesus said. So here we are to remind each other to keep letting go, to allow ourselves to be empty, to allow ourselves to be, to return to innocence. And it's in this light that we meet, with that understanding that we're always standing here now, and that enlightenment and nirvana is also here now, If we are on a path, we are always on that path. We've never arrived. But here we remind ourselves of the direct path. We are here right now. We can't be in the future or the past. Love and beauty is here now with us, available in every moment. If we let go of the chattering mind and tune in to the divine radio. Noticing the beauty all around us, ever available. Also being able to accept the pain when it is here, the discomfort as well as the comfort. Without being attached to those preferences, letting go of craving and aversion, and simply being available to what is in each moment, and allowing the divine to play this instrument, through action and direction. It's like the universe is the man that stands in front of the orchestra directing that music, the conductor. And the more open we are, the less we are attached to the way things have to be, then we can allow the universe to conduct this life and live it to the fullest ability, allowing as much joy, playfulness through each moment. So I pass over to you guys now, and feel free to share any of your intuitions. Perhaps you have a question, perhaps you've had an insight or a realization that perhaps the other members of the group will enjoy as well. We're all here for each other because we know we are one.
Yeah, I'm doing really, really well. I've sort of had some physical stuff going on as well, which is probably all part of the process, and I'm just sitting with that and feeling some physical discomfort, and really just sitting with it. I sat a lot through last night, just being with that and just allowing it. Interestingly, when what I find is I thought, gosh, I'm going to be so tired in the morning because I'm just sitting here, and actually just being in that place is deeply restorative, isn't it? It's almost like a kind of sleep in a way for the body and for the mind.
Yeah, it definitely can be. So yeah, that's a good realization for you as well. I used to find parenting, because I had 4 children, and a lot of the time I was raising those 4 children on my own. And very often I was up a lot in the night when they were young and didn't really get much sleep because there was no one to share that with. And I soon discovered that I could very quickly relax again after I'd either fed a child or, you know, patted them back to sleep. And because I didn't resist that, I was able to continue on, and it really on what you would say would be very little sleep, because there was no resistance to it, which is what you're sharing here, Sarah. There was no resistance to that. I could still function really well and not feel tired on very little sleep. And I think the key is there, if we're not resisting what's happening, but if we're lying there going, oh, I'm not sleeping, I'm going to be tired tomorrow, and I'm in so much pain, and tomorrow is just going to be a disaster, and we're resisting, then that we're creating that actually. And although we're only talking about sleep here, life is like that as well. I went out, one of my sons picked me up with his partner and my grandson and took me out to breakfast this morning. And I spoke, two people came up to me and went, oh, I had a broken leg. And the other one was, I had a broken ankle. Oh, it was the worst year of my life. Oh, you poor thing. And it was, they went on and on and on. Oh, and it, you know, it's taken me a year and I'm finally walking. And I'm like, that's your reality. I walked away and I said to Aruna, I said, that's not going to happen to me. I'm still enjoying life, you know, although it is uncomfortable at times, and although it has slowed me down and limited what this body can do, there's still a lot of joy passing through here, and there's still presence. And the only time it becomes really difficult is when we resist what is. If I resist it and make it wrong, or you know, make it difficult with mental vrittis, you know, with the mental or the evil deities of the mind come in and make something wrong, that is when we get physically and mentally exhausted. Definitely. Yeah, so that's great noticing, Sarah. It's very true.
It is interesting noticing, Soraya, how that often in society it's supposed to, like, people tend towards the negative than the positive, and sometimes it could be part of our conditioning too, because if we don't complain, if we don't say the woe is me, sometimes people don't get possible attention that they may be looking for, or possible love or caring. And so that's an interesting observation, that to be able to give love and care and attention to people, even when they're not necessarily making a song and dance for it.
Yeah, well, it begins when we're little children, of course, because we cry for our mother's attention. We cry if our nappy's dirty, and we cry if we're hungry, and that's our only way of relating to the world until we have words. And then that need for attention, I just remember, you know, my children, for those of you that are parents, it was always, Mummy, look at me, look at me. and you know, of course the parent makes a, oh, you're so this, you're so that, and it actually builds a, I was observing that with my little grandson, of course, who's absolutely gorgeous, this morning, and we do have to be perhaps a little more careful with that, because it does tend to build a need for that attention it's quite different when a child feels completely secure and loved. When we feel secure and we feel loved and we feel enough and we remember who we truly are, which is love itself, then that need dies away somewhat. But within the world, within the embodied world and within the pure physical world, that drive to have the other's attention and the other's love and the recognition from the other. Unfortunately, our society has really built that up into something that is counterproductive, because we see it on social media with a lot of the young ones, particularly now, and you know, every selfie they're sort of pouting their lips and putting out quite an unrealistic image of how their life is to get, you know, likes, whether it's a thumbs up or a heart or an emoji. But it is something to be very mindful of, I think, to begin to notice our own behaviors. And this is where, you know, mindful awareness and attention and self-inquiry can come in. Where is it that we sometimes act out in this way? And where is it in our lives where we are not feeling enough? Which, of course, is a complete illusion, because we are enough. We're perfect. We're wonderful. So thank you, Kathy. Is there anything else you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, just how I love the fact that more and more for myself, I'm becoming aware that I don't need other people's approval, or while I appreciate friends' love and care and concern, part of this satsang group for me is that, you know, a bigger realization that I am enough, that I have complete, utter love, joy, peace, all there within me. And that is enough. So that's wonderful. The other thing too, I was going to say, as well as thoughts for Sarah, I'm aware too that Terry is that your goddaughter, and I think a lot of you know her as well. I think there was a funeral as well, so I was sending thoughts there as well. Yeah. And just quickly, one more thing. It's interesting. I think you were talking about time, Soraya, and how, you know, you made the comment that it's nearly been a whole year. That was been, yeah, has it been more than a year that we've been together as a group, getting to know each other and support and care for each other? And you do wonder where that time goes. But time would be an interesting topic to discuss at another satsang, maybe. It's a tricky one for me to get my head around, some of the things I hear about time.
Yes, it was the topic of a past, I think it was the last satsang, wasn't it, Ish? Where you asked that question about time. And time is, as we mentioned then, a man-made concept, obviously developed by observing nature and the turning of the seasons and the moon cycles, and of course everything occurs in cycles, and we are living in this incredible holographic universe, and there is a mathematical mystery to the whole universe unfolding. But human mind has created time so that it can make sense of it all. I think if we were to experience the whole holograph in a moment, it could just blow this mind. And I remember in the Bhagavad Gita, where Arjuna says, "Show me God, show me," you know, and Krishna says, "I cannot show you because it is just too, it will blow your mind, basically. It's just too much." And then there was a flash, and it was like, yes, it was too much. So we break it up into little segments that we call time. Perhaps it's like little bite-sized pieces. And then we create our story with the history. But it's only ever now. We cannot be in yesterday. We cannot be in tomorrow. We cannot be in 5 minutes' time. It's impossible. You know, some people who have a gift of sight can travel in the spirit world, perhaps forward or backward. But as an embodied human, no. It's always now, it's ever now. When we are dreaming at night, that seems just as real, doesn't it, sometimes, as the daytime. But there's no concept of time when we're dreaming. There's no concept of time then at all. It's a very different experience without the physical body, isn't it? It's interesting. Very, very interesting. Has anyone else got anything they'd like to share or ask about?
Okay, mine. I was you delved straight into something that was on my mind today, Soraya, in relation to being present in the now. And you know, on the one hand, it's incredibly so simple to just stay with whatever is in front of you, isn't it? Why go anywhere else but with what's in front of you? And it seems so simple, and yet it's the hardest thing that I find to practice, being in the present. And I can't really get my head around why it's so hard. Why is it so hard that even for a split second I can't stay in the present?
My feeling there is that the focus is drawn to the mind stuff, to the little voice in the head all the time, to the running commentary. And that running commentary takes often all someone's attention. And it will, if given all your attention, drive you insane. And as long as your focus is with that running commentary, then you will not be present. And initially, this was the practice of meditation, that we focus on the breath, perhaps, or sound, just listening to the birds, so that that running commentary, that little voice that continues on, fades into the background, and we no longer make our existence and our attention around that. Because as long as our awareness is attached to and focused on that running commentary, then we are not and cannot be fully present to all that is in this moment. unfortunately, through our education, we've focused a little bit too much on mind, a lot too much on mind and mind stuff and gathering knowledge, and very little on being present, open, aware, and allowing our natural intuitive faculties to develop properly. There is an inner knowing that doesn't have a mind patter to go with it. There, you know, this body, this conduit is a beautiful barometer where we get feelings about things and intuitions. But often we don't get them because we're so busy listening to the mental stuff or chasing after the next piece of interesting information, filling ourselves with book or learned knowledge and developing that mental pattern, and not being present to the energy, the source, the vibration, and the vibrations that are moving through this body as well, and the intuition that can be developed by this presence. So my advice is perhaps I know that you've done a lot of meditation, but where has the focus been? Because if it's on the running commentary, that's not going to help. It would be a better meditation to walk in the forest and feel the footfall, listen to the birds, notice the air on the skin, feel the freshness, and just be really present in that movement. In the same way you could do that walking through the city. Of course, it's more pleasant in the forest, but you can do the same wherever you are. Just as we just spoke to Sarah, she spent a difficult night with discomfort in her body, but she was present to that. She wasn't listening to her mind going, I won't be able to function tomorrow. So it's getting away from that automated, patterned mind stuff, you know, those evil deities of the mind, which are just automated thoughts, which loop us round and round quite often, and becoming open to the freshness of the moment. I hope that can help, Girish.
Very much so, Soraya. You actually just reminded me of this time last year when I was in a very, very dark place in my mind. That what you described of being out there and just feeling and listening and sensing is what helped me the most, actually. And that's a great reminder. Thank you. That's
the way you can live every moment, Girish. Not just when you're feeling down or when it's, you know, when you're desperate. That's how to live every moment. I'll just come over to Colette now. You can unmute Colette and
thank you, Soraya. I mean, what I wanted to say connects with everything that has been said, and that this is what happens every week for me, that the things that are spoken about are in my awareness or in my experience of the previous week. And this week is the same. I mean, there's lots of story, but that's not the point. The point is it is about this interconnectedness, that all these experiences are universal, and tuning into them and being aware that it's that oneness that you talk about, and it's related to time as well, because it's sort of anticipatory, or it's past, or it you know, but it's now. And embodiment, and all the sensations in the body, and staying with them, and what that feels like. So it's this is it this sounds a little, but it's almost beyond words, because it's so I don't know, it's so much part of being human and being connected to other people, and to just experience. So for each and everyone, I just feel really, really connected. And every week it's sort of a little astonishing what comes up. And I don't necessarily speak, because that's maybe repeating something that someone else has said. So I guess I just want to say that, and very much in appreciation and wonder at it all. And the time frame is really interesting. And it's a good way to live.
It is, and it's so rich. You know, if we can just be open to everything, nothing's left out. It's so rich. But yet we get stuck in that little mental pattern. Thank you so much.
You said earlier, Soraya, about disagreeing, you know, being in agreement with everything, and then the resistance isn't there, then the pain isn't there. That's just so important. Yeah. Thank you. Sorry, Sarah, you were going to say something.
Thank you, Colette. Go ahead, Sarah.
I just wanted to say, Colette, there was a 2-day conference on the primacy of consciousness, and it was really cerebral, because it was, you know, eminent physicists and people on the cutting edge of, you know, mathematicians and researchers, and the conversation, the discussion was almost the same as this here. And it was really heartening to see their talk. They were sort of, you know, the conversation, the discussions around children, and how do we put a halt on this system of education of filling children's minds with facts and information, and really help them to develop their capacity for meditation and inner referencing, and then through that understanding the interconnectedness of everything. It was fascinating, and the conclusions were very similar to the conclusions that we, you know, or the senses that we have here in this satsang.
Amazing.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Sarah. I love that term, inner referencing. That's a great term, isn't it? I might just pinch that one.
It's a term we used to use in when I was doing family work, and we were looking at it, where individuals were finding their references, whether they were internally referenced or externally referenced, because the more external the references are, the more challenging people's lives become, because they're trying to, you know, meet other people's agendas rather than their own.
Totally. That's why I love the term, because that's what we all need to be doing. Instead of referencing encyclopedias and what all our friends think, we need to be referencing what's happening in this, which is the barometer and the conduit for consciousness to be showing us and teaching us. Because this is the only, you know, consciousness is the foundation of the body, and it is showing us through what's happening in the body and the sensations and it's just so important, so important. But yet, I see it with a lot of the young ones now. Their referencing is all external, particularly, you know, what someone's wearing or how they're speaking or where they're going, and fashion. Yeah, it's a little bit sad, and this global turn back now toward mindfulness and meditation and consciousness. There is a wave, and it's building momentum. And as you've just shared, Sarah, you know, some of the brightest minds on this planet are part of that wave and that momentum, and they are seeing that pure book and study knowledge is not the way to go. It's not our highest expression. But I am going to pass over to Terry now, because I'm sure he's got something wonderful to share, or something will come through. We just trust that, don't we, Terry?
Start off with a blank, see what happens. Yeah. Let's just go back to what Girish was saying about meditation, being in the present moment. I think it's really important to come back to what meditation is, and meditation is actually being in the present moment. It's not a practice where you get to the present moment. And being in a state of meditation is the state that happens by itself, comes into being by itself when thought drops away. Of its own accord again, we don't have a practice to stop the thought in order to get into a state of meditation, because that's the looping mechanism which creates that feeling of, why can't I just be there for 1 second? It's that whole process of using thought to try and stop thought. It's impossible. So thought will stop of its own accord when it understands its right place. And its right place, as we often speak of, is in the area of knowledge and functioning, using memory, all that stuff. It's very boring to talk about it all the time, but it's really important to get the basics understanding, because the effort to achieve is the mechanics of what thinking is all about. Everything happens by itself, and even though it feels like we can change things, what we're doing is moving with the flow without trying to move with the flow, because we move with the flow anyway. So imagine if you knew beyond a shadow of a doubt, absolutely beyond a shadow of a doubt, there was no death, that you are pure consciousness, creating this marvelous playground, the universe. What would be the feeling? Would it be joy? Would it be bliss, wonderful freedom? Or would it kind of spoil the game? is not the illusion necessary somehow? These are the sort of questions that we need to keep asking ourselves, because as I think somebody was saying earlier about agreement and reality. What is reality? Reality is, for the most part, based on agreement. We agree that's a tree, that's a house, that's a car, that's a universe, those are stars. And these days we troll the internet looking for agreement or looking for opinions out there, and that's the outside referencing you were just talking about. But when we start asking the questions here, any question, who am I is the ultimate question, of course, then we're not looking for agreement. So long as we're looking for agreement, we're cross-referencing our own ideas. We're looking to validate who we are, validate our stories, our histories, our belief systems. And I think I mentioned last week, our bedtime story at the moment is a book by Carlos Castaneda called Journey to Ixtlan. And in this, he talks of a thing called controlled folly, where you know that it isn't real, but you pretend that it is. So when you get to the point where you know, where you are living as consciousness, all the motivation will go out the window unless you practice controlled folly, which is acting as though things are the way that they are. I'm probably sending you all to sleep, am I? So just one more thing. We talked earlier about the direct path again. Well, let's not forget that the direct path begins and ends with the gateless gate. And the gateless gate is nobody can enter it. So let's be nobody. I think that's a good way to end.
There's nobody here, no face to face. Something I'll just add for Girish. I think Girish his computer might have died, but you can share it with him, Ish. Or maybe this will go on YouTube if I get round to it. Something that I find helpful, and with, when I'm working with clients, is to get them to think of that little voice in the mind as a nagging child, going, "Mummy, mummy, 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 mummy," because that's really what it is. It's demanding our attention. And sometimes children just need to be left on their own, and so that they can learn to actually play by themselves, to be creative by themselves. And I mean that in an absolute loving way, but giving a child constant attention all the time just teaches them that they need. Oh, Girish is back now. Here he is. So giving a child constant attention all the time then often disallows that child to develop self-reliance so that they can actually learn to be alone on their own and play or simply be. And the mind is like this, Girish, that little voice in the mind. It is like a child going, come on, listen to me, I need your attention, I need your attention all the time. But what we have to do is just to let the mind do what the mind does. It will continue, but it will slowly get quieter and it'll feel like it's more distant. Your focus being in the present moment through the sensations, through the experience of everything in the present. And that is part of it, but that is not your full focus. So it falls into the background. And just as a child, if you don't give them attention, they will actually eventually, they might have a little tantrum, and your mind might have a bit of a tantrum too, but eventually they will begin to quieten down and play quietly on their own. And so that's what can happen with that mental patter, that it fades into the background. It will become quieter and quieter. It's not getting your attention all the time. So after a few little tantrums, it will fade into the background and you will become more present fully without that being the focus. So I just thought that little analogy there might help. So we've had a birth this week in our family. The other end of I have a new little granddaughter called Ali Jane, who was born on the 1st of December. And we have another one imminent any moment. She's overdue. So all these wonderful things that play out in life, you know, there's birth, there's death, there's everything in between. And it's all a gift. It's all a gift. And the only way we can have the experience of this now, which is always now, is through embodiment. So embrace embodiment. Embrace this barometer of the soul. Feel the energy. Don't get too stuck in the mental patterns. And enjoy the ride. That's what we're here to do. We're here to enjoy the ride. With all the ups and downs, the good, the bad, the ugly, the joyous and the painful. It's all part of it. So next week we will have Satsang as we have had. And then I thought, which I haven't told you about yet, Terry, but on the 20th is a very special date, and the 21st is the summer solstice. And I do feel like at the end of this year there is going to be a beautiful shift, and the more of us that can be in that one heart, oneness of experience, the better. So on the 20th, I thought we would do a special meditation and sitting and satsang around that. And I'll send that out. But next week, it'll just be satsang as usual. Okay, everyone. Lots of love. Love to everyone. Namaste.